This is your Not So Critical update for Friday, August 13th. Today, Apple's attempt to root out child porn. Cyber attacks are up in 2021. Shocking. And you can't escape the albatross. And now your hosts, Mike Sutton and Peter Lowe.
We always start as if it's the first time we're talking together, but we're here getting ready before the show actually starts. But it is exciting to be here recording once again. We're here on a early Friday morning to have the show out by 10 a.m. this morning. How you doing, Peter?
Very early for you, Mike. I'm constantly impressed by impressed might be the wrong word. Amazed, perhaps, at how early you get up, and but I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, sir?
I don't know if it's something to be surprised by, just or that it's kind of silly. I don't know, just glutton for punishment. I don't know.
Glutton for punishment. Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah. It's. I had to get up at 7:20 earlier this week, and it was horrible. I don't want to do that again.
I was flying back from a conference in Dallas yesterday and had set my alarm for 3:30 a.m. to get to the airport. Luckily, it was an earlier time zone, so it felt like 4:30, which is a little bit more manageable, but still, it was a long day.
Yeah, that is a very long day. I mean, wow.
And then I remembered at like 9:30 that I had to get ready for the show at 4:30, so
oh dear. Well, hackers never sleep. Why should we?
That's right. Dedication. I like it. Yeah, hackers do never sleep. I think more articles about infections again today. So maybe someday there just won't be any malware attacks and we'll get on the show and just have nothing to talk about.
Yeah. That might happen. Let's just live in hope.
All right, well, let's see what did happen.
Yeah. So this is hilarious. This is an anti-piracy firm so Google published they have like a transparency report that shows the domains that they have received requests to delist from the search results. And they let you view it by domain as well as by popularity, by number of requests. And one of the domains that they get requests for is localhost, which means your own machine, which is for Google, it would be their own server. For you and I, it would be our own machines. So it's ridiculous, and it's obviously clearly a mistake. But the more interesting, I think, implication of this is that there's a couple of possibilities. I think it's definitely some automated process, which is not filtering out localhost, but it sort of implies that the people submitting these requests are running software which is distributing copyright material from their servers. And I imagine that they probably do this as a way to catch other people who are downloading the copyright material. But if it makes sense, because one of the places that's sharing it is their own machine, so it will end up on their block list.
Because it would almost have to be a web server running on the local machine, or at least on the same machine that's doing the scanning.
Well, I mean, a web server or a torrent client was seed. So I'm not intimately familiar with BitTorrent protocol, but I think that if they have if they're kind of tracking the people who are seeding movies and stuff, and they're seeding it as well, then they will end up on their own block list.
Yeah, because it could be that they just have some automated process running that's picking this up. I guess it could be that somebody just doesn't know that they're looking at files on their own computer, right? And sends a report. Or as you were talking through it, it sounded like it could almost be malicious.
Suppose.
See if you can trick somebody into deleting a file off the server. Although they're reporting their own files on somebody else's
Yeah,
server,
yeah,
so that seems
yeah.
unlikely.
This is a big kind of company that's engaged to send these requests to Google. By the way, a side effect of the transparency of Google is that it's now an excellent place to find domains which are distributing movies and stuff, because you can sort by number of requests or number of deleting requests.
So if you're looking
start
for a host that has lots of content to share, you could look at Google's list.
No comment on that particularly. Just a note.
Right. Do we know that works?
I haven't tested it yet. I haven't checked. I mean, I may have gone to one or two other sites and looked at it, but that's my job, is to investigate domains and sites and things. So
yeah, security researchers. It's such interesting stuff you find. Nobody knew the internet was going to work this way. It's kind of amazing that it works as well as it does, but then we run into stuff like this.
Yes, the whole thing is held together by duct tape and hacks that should not have ever been made public. It's absolutely 100% true, but that's just how it works. It's things that kind of work and then they stick around. That's it.
And when they came up with this stuff, there was no way to guess how big it was going to grow. I mean, they were just trying to connect a couple universities and research labs together originally, right?
Right. And it's actually a kind of a heartwarming sign of human nature, in that we don't instantly go to we need to protect this. Perhaps now we're doing that more because we've seen what happens, or at least we're seeing what's happened. But when these academics were trying to connect these computers together, they were like, we don't need logins. We don't need why would anybody do anything malicious or bad with this? It probably didn't even cross their mind. So
who would do it?
Who would do that crazy shit like that?
Some other researcher across the country, or what? Yeah, it's
Although there are stories of the first spam email and there's a really famous one in the 80s from a guy who wrote the first worm, and it messed up a whole load of systems. And I think it was fairly unintentional that he just wrote a self-replicating program that was able to connect to other machines and then copy itself and then connect to more, and it bogged down whole networks. And it was an accident,
I remember so I was at Penn State in '92, and we had a computer. So it was common enough that there was a computer lab, but what I remember at the time was really all you could do is chat with other universities, and students would use it to share games. Great. And then word processing, I guess, in the computer lab. But that was pretty much it.
You just dated yourself there, by the way. I've been wondering.
I know.
All right.
We should talk sometime about our early computer experiences.
Oh man, I have a few stories.
I bet. This is fun.
Yeah, this is great. Actually, it's fun, but it's also very cool. It's a thing from Mozilla, and what they've done is they've rated different things on the market by how their privacy protections or lack of privacy protections. And you can see there's a little smiley face down the bottom there, the bottom right. As you're scrolling down, he gets more and more sad about the different products on display. A lot of them are blurred out because a lot of them are sex toys. Yeah, and then it starts.
Worried.
Yeah, a little worried there now.
I don't know.
You're not even close to halfway down as well. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I feel so bad for him.
The thing I love about this, though, is that this isn't just some automated scraping data set. It's got, if you go in and click through to each product, it gives you a detailed description of the product and how it uses data and how it shares data and stuff. It's really good. It must have been a lot of work.
Yeah, to put this together. I mean, they've got resources to work on it, right? But really fun list to look at
Yeah.
on foundation.mozilla.org. I'm sure you could search for it. It's called Privacy Not Included. But some of the stuff, thermometers on it. We
Yeah.
talked about sex toys before. There are actually several sex toys on the list.
Oh, yeah.
Remote controlled cars on the list. It's just some of the stuff that's a privacy, a punching bag that has tracking for how many punches, activity tracking. It's a fun list to look at for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we've
It's
talked several
interesting.
times about the risks of some of these security risks and privacy risks to some of these Internet of Things devices.
Yeah, basically they're tracking everything they possibly can. The default is so there's a thing in privacy engineering called privacy by design or privacy by default, right? And it's working into the product from the ground up, the same way that we develop software and products with security in mind. It's developing it with privacy in mind right from the beginning. And most of these things are like the opposite. In fact, most products are the opposite. If there's data there, let's have it. In fact, can anybody think of anything else that we can track? Yep, let's add that in too. So there's a guy on Privacy Matters on Twitter who's the privacy counsel for DuckDuckGo, and he has this term called data vampires, which I love. And it basically means just sucking up all the data that they possibly can for eternal life.
But in a lot of these cases, it's designed because you do want that data. So I've talked about my training watch before. Tracks biometric data, tracks location data. All my my calendar stuff is on. It connects things with my phone. But I want it to do that because I want those reports. Same with the punching bag. An Alexa device or some kind of voice activated device. You expect that to be listening. Well, we've talked about this before. You should expect that to be listening to you all the time. But some of these other devices are like, why are you listening to me like this? Why are you tracking me like this?
Yeah.
Probably just a consequence of the way they're connected to the phone. But so maybe in some of those cases, it's more about getting access to the phone than via what I mean to say is if the controlling app on the phone for one of these devices gets compromised, maybe it's more designed towards getting to what's on the phone than getting to what's on the device. Does that make sense? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense.
It is pretty early. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. We'll just stop that.
The rambling's the good bit, man. Obviously there's good uses for this. It's just the problem is that people never stop at just good uses, and that's one of the things that one of the arguments I've come across with in particular analytics companies which are trying to be privacy preserving is that it's fine for them to have the data, and actually some of the times it is okay because basic analytics to a website is useful, but there's so much bad faith being generated from all these people who are misusing and abusing the data that they've got, that I think one of the challenges for the privacy industry is just overcoming that and proving that not everybody is a bastard. And I think
good luck.
Yeah, really, that is my reaction as well. Like, I don't know if it's ever going to happen.
And we talk about this a lot. Like, if humanity, if a researcher, if a business can do something, and it creates an advantage for them, they're going to do it. We see it with social media. We see it with these devices, government surveillance. So what, you try and legislate it away and say, well, you can do it and it would be profitable for you to do it, but you're not allowed. Therefore, what, you're not going to? Of course, people are going to try and figure out ways around those things.
Yeah. So I mentioned this before the show, but I wrote an article this week about some predictions I have for the future of content filtering with regards to privacy. And I talked about regulation, and you just mentioned, and it's all coming in all over the place, as we've talked about before. And I think one of the things that's going to happen is that there's going to be the equivalent of tax havens, but for data. So there's going to be areas of the world where the laws don't exist, or they're not as strong, or they're not enforced, and people are going to start operating their data operations from those places. So all these regulations are unfortunately going to be kind of circumvented because people want to do this.
Absolutely, and there's precedent for that. We saw that with online gambling. Kind of broke out a couple years ago. Then everybody started cracking down on the sites that were doing it because they were, whatever, cheating, violating local laws, and so they all just consolidated in countries that
like Malta.
Didn't have those
There's a big iGaming industry here. Yeah, although they had the regulators here had. I mean, this is totally a tangent, but yeah, I know a bit too much about this, and I tend to get very boring very quickly. So I think I might just yeah.
and then we run because of that. We run into cases like injunctions against DNS providers to try and block access to some of that content that we saw a couple weeks ago. Now, what was it, Cloud9?
Yeah, it was Quad9. Yeah,
Quad9,
and
Quad9,
it was an experimental lawsuit from Sony that was alleging that Quad9 should be responsible for DNS lookups to sites that link to copyrighted material, and not just from the government or anything, but from Sony. And it's currently in the courts in Hamburg. That's a whole topic in itself. But just to go back to the thing about the different jurisdictions, my favorite example of this is sites which have the technical capability to honor requests for data, but will refuse to if you're not in a jurisdiction that gives you that right.
It requires it.
So it's quite common in the California, where if you send a subject access request to I don't know, a newspaper, and you're not from California, they'll just say no. But if you are from California, they have to provide the data. So they have the technical capability, and they built it into the system to be able to honor the request, but they just won't bother if they don't have to.
I mean, there's going to be cases like this all the time. Businesses are going to do everything they can get away with. Humans, I mean, even if there's not a financial incentive, there's entertainment incentive, just can I do this challenge? People are going to do it. I think we talk about how cynical I am about surveillance. I mean, that's why. It's just the way the world is now. I think you can't put the genie back in the bottle. We're just going to have to adapt.
The sad thing is, right, the reason that one of my favorite areas of engineering or tech stuff was always taking big data sets, unstructured data sets, and parsing them and cleaning them and making them into something useful. I love that. I love scraping websites and then extracting data from it and then chucking it in a database and having this lovely clean data set that was, post-processed and everything, and it gave you insight into things that were unexpected. Turns out, and this is the reason that I'm interested in privacy so much, turns out that doing that, it has all these horrifying consequences that lets you see things that you really shouldn't, or at least shouldn't abuse. And yeah, that's how I got so interested in the whole topic.
On privacy, there was an article that we didn't include about deep fakes. And I thought that was interesting because in a way, you're not violating someone's privacy, but in a way you are. The ethics around a lot of these things are I mean, in that case, it's clearly wrong. There's no ethical question, I don't think. But
is it though? Is it?
That's a good. I don't know. I guess
if I drew a picture of you naked, like obviously it's going to be a bad picture, but is that okay? It's fan art in a way.
No, it's not. No, it's not okay. It's fan art. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, fan art. But if I got really good at drawing, and then I was able to depict you completely naked in I would say poses that you might not be in, but then again, hey, I don't know your private life.
That's how I hang around the
So
house. What are you talking about?
yeah, right, okay. So I just took that from my imagination and put it. At what point does it get to be clearly wrong?
Yeah, I mean the
Um,
whole deepfake thing, super, super interesting. But
yeah.
I,
Well,
again, we can do it,
another
so somebody's going to. But what do you do about it? And
I think the other interesting thing that fascinates me about this, and I really haven't come to any conclusions because I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, is the copyright issue of when an artist, like a famous artist, gets impersonated, but it's not really them, and voice actors, right? Voice replication technology has gotten to the point where a voice actor for a major game or a AAA title can be replaced by a robot, like a AI or whatever the term is, and then they don't have to pay the voice actor anymore. It's really, I don't know how to process that really. Let's talk about it some other time.
yeah, I don't
I'm
think anybody
gonna come
does.
back to
And
that.
you'd actually set up a nice segue into this next unpleasant story, and I kind of took us backwards, but let's set
Oh,
this one up.
yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. This is one of those times where the host will say, well, unless you've been living under a rock in the last week, you will have heard about, because this story's been all over the place and all the mainstream news sites. Apple is going to start scanning people's private photos and anything that it detects as CSAM, so child sexual abuse material. They are going to flag the account and then review that person's entire photo library. And the way they're doing it is a thing called perceptual hashing, which is not, so a hash is a way of creating a kind of a signature of a file, and where you can create a signature of two files, and if they match, then it's extremely likely that they're identical. This is not 100%, and it's one of the issues I'll come to in a second. So perceptual hashing is a way of standard hashing is just doing exact comparisons. You generate the hash from the bit by bit. Perceptual hashing creates a kind of a fuzzy version, which can be loosely matched to another hash. So one of the ways that people who produce this kind of content is by making small changes, and then the hash changes, and then it makes it harder to detect. But with perceptual hashing, it makes it easier to detect because the small changes will not cause it to completely mismatch. However, there are a lot of issues with this, many issues. Apple's intention here is noble. It's a terrible problem online that we've brought up a couple of times before, and I had to deal with professionally, and it's the least favorite. It's not even. It's the most horrible part of my job. But it exists, and it's something that needs to be done about it. Unfortunately, Apple's approach here has too many issues, in my opinion, and in quite a few other people's opinion, to be something they should be doing. So a couple of those are the fuzzy matches are basically what you can imagine it are something along the lines of, if you blur an image and blur another image, then it's easier to compare them, right? So if you squint at an image, it reduces some of the detail, and then you can keep doing that until the point at which almost any two images which are vaguely similar will match, right? You could do that in real life. I could squint at you and squint at someone else, and you can, oh, it's Mike, but it's not. It's Billy. Anyway, so that's one problem. The second problem is that that people are going to get incorrectly flagged, and they are then going to have their entire photo library manually reviewed. And this is stuff from their private devices that they had no idea would be actually looked at by any other humans. And there's some claims about this, like they say there's only a 1 in a trillion chance of a mismatch, but that is just basically not true. It's marketing speak. So yeah.
So that's one of my questions. Let's say let's say the technology worked, and we've got a couple examples of people who are going to talk about that it definitely does not work. But let's say there
Yeah.
were no false positives, there were no false negatives. You mentioned that they have noble intentions. They can do this. They have access to do it. If the technology worked, should they do it?
Okay, so there's other issues. Let me continue. One of the problems is that once they start doing it, they've opened the door to other kind of content being identified. Once you show that governments that you can do this, they're going to want to scan other stuff. So Turkey is going to want to scan for dissidents, and China is going to want to scan for anti-communist content, and et cetera, et cetera. I hope I haven't just blacklisted us by mentioning those two countries in particular. But just that's going to happen, and just the fact that it's possible to do is shocking. Apple are so pro privacy, and the image we got on the screen here is a massive ad that they put up saying, "What happens when your iPhone stays on your iPhone?" Well, that's not true anymore, is it? I mean, yeah.
And part of it is
There's
that
been
it
a-
is happening on device. Part of why they can do it is because it is happening on the device, not in the cloud. They
Yeah,
specifically say that if you're syncing your photos with iCloud, they're not being scanned on iCloud. They're definitely being scanned on the local phone.
yeah, because they're legally prevented from doing that, and that's not allowed. But because it's client side, they can, and then they can flag the account, and then they can manually review it. It's the same result. I mean, they found a way around it, and I'm sure that there were a lot of people who thought, "Yeah, this is a solid plan," but I don't quite think it is. It's a real shame because I genuinely believe that more needs to be done to combat this problem on the internet. But I don't think this is the right approach, unfortunately.
Y- Yeah, it's so tough because, obviously we want to catch people who are doing this, but like you said, it can be abused for other uses.
Yeah.
Who knows what kind of pictures people have on their phones that could not trigger this, but show them doing things they might not want Apple looking at.
Yeah.
And even
Yes.
for all the times I make the argument that you're bringing this device with a microphone and camera into your home and carrying it around with you all day long, that it's actively looking at the pictures on your phone to judge the content, feels creepy even for me. Even though I
Wow.
know
Okay.
a boundary. But is it worth the trade-off? It's such a tough question to answer. The crime is so severe, you could say, well, we're willing to do almost anything to catch it. I almost think that I fall on that side.
Yeah. It's a hard call, isn't it? I mean, yeah, and it's difficult to talk about because it's when if you criticize something like this for any reason, then you can very quickly get labeled, oh, so what about the children, kind of thing, and so it's almost impossible to talk about this subjectively. I so I struggle, and it's an uncomfortable subject, and the results are so horrific that it's just I'm glad I don't have to do this professionally full time. Is all I can say.
It's the it's a bad situation. Yeah. So okay, well, let's just talk about some of the technical problems then.
Yeah. So this is a guy who I have read several of his blog posts before. They're really good. He runs a photo. I think it's photo sharing or image upload, like a gallery type site, and image processing. It's for professional photographers to manage their digital libraries, and he implemented from day one. He's had scanning for child pornography, as part of his service, and he is a frequent reporter to the Missing Child's Line, the NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who are the people, by the way, who are behind the database that Apple's going to be using. And he talks about some of the issues dealing with the NCMEC, and also about problems with the technology and issues that he's run into having to try and implement these kind of things in the past. And he has reported more to them than Apple actually has, which is a remarkable statistic. Just this one guy running a service on his own. And he really knows what he's talking about. He also wrote, there's one other thing that's coming up, but this is definitely worth checking out and well written. You know, it's understandable to the layman. Oh yeah.
In these cases, so as you were talking through that, I was thinking about, we have legitimate use. This is legitimate use. It's so hard to talk about this. We've had other cases where the content of photos would be scanned. Google, is it Google? Not Google Glass. Those are the glass. What's the? There's a Google service you can take a picture and it'll look up and tell you what it is.
Lens.
Why? Lens. Yes. I see. I knew it had something to do with like glasses or lens.
Yeah.
So
threw me off there.
Useful scanning a picture. It's scanning a picture that you asked them to scan, so that minimal privacy impact there. But I was thinking about like Facebook used to kind of try to auto tag people based on if they appeared in one of your pictures that you uploaded or not. And I don't know that they. I feel like they maybe don't do that anymore. I don't see it when I upload pictures. Maybe it just kind of drifted away.
I think they turned it off because of public perception, but you can be guaranteed they still do it in the back end. They also have a patent, by the way, for identifying the location of an image based, well, in part on dust on the camera lens and scratches on the camera lens. So if you upload one image which has geolocation and scratches and another image that doesn't have geolocation but the same scratches, then they can match them up and assess the metadata. They have a patent for this, which they filed in 2014. Another one, which is where it identifies the people in the photo, and if they have geolocation on, then it will tag you and set the geolocation for the image based on them and where they are. So yeah, they have all sorts of stuff. They're trying very, very hard to get as much metadata as they can. You're right. There is the legitimate uses for automatically scanning things. That's of course, it's great. I mean, there's loads of stuff that computers can do for us that we would, find boring to do ourselves. Going through an image library and tagging each one and putting in names of the people in the photos and the location, everything is a chore. So it's just the misuse. It's the it's the rights to privacy. It shouldn't be opt out. It's
and maybe it's that they're setting it off the device. I think this is why ultimately I'm probably in favor of this, is that they already are scanning all the pictures. We know that they're doing that. At least do it for something useful.
Well, I don't know that they are. I don't know that Apple are. That's one of my issues with it, is that big ad that you showed up there, is that Apple are so putting across this image of like, your privacy is your privacy. What's on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. Privacy, that's iPhone. Like, and then they're doing this, which is not that at all. So I don't know that they are automatically scanning images and doing anything with them. Maybe they were.
Not even on the device?
Yeah.
For categorization?
I don't know.
Okay.
But it's not just the stuff that happens on the device. If it just happened on the device and stayed there, I would be okay with that. And in fact, that's what most privacy preserving stuff does. It just does the useful things, and doesn't connect to the internet and upload all your data. I'd love an Oculus that didn't upload my user behavior, or a Fitbit that didn't store my health data in the cloud. But anyway.
Yeah, we've talked about video games before, the amount of data they collect there too.
Yeah.
It's it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough question. I'm trying to think about if it feels like a case where like the pendulum swings too far. So they're gonna capture more in the net than they need to be able to accomplish this. There are going to be false positives, and is that number of false positives worth the benefit of being able to catch these criminals, terrible, like just horrible people, by being able to do this?
I mean, you say the false positives, but it's not just false positives. It's people who are going to get accused and probably taken, maybe arrested, maybe publicly. There's going to be some fairly serious consequences for these false positives. This is not just like a malware domain that got incorrectly blocked. This is
sure.
Life-changing false positives. The other thing is and this is problematic. There's no visibility into, with the other automatic scanning stuff, you can see what's going on and it's useful to you. This is not useful to the end user. And there shouldn't be for it to be effective, right? Because if someone knew that they were getting flagged, they'd delete the stuff so that they wouldn't get caught. So it's a catch-22.
And I don't know if this is something we talked about. I read an article about that this week. The idea that, well, if you've got nothing to hide, then you shouldn't be worried about this. And that is not a valid argument to my mind, for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is there's saying that like if somebody, they can always find a crime, and you see if you get pulled over by the police, it could be speeding, it could be your view is obstructed by this thing sitting on your dashboard. Like there's always something they can find. So I don't want to say, oh well, there's nothing on my phone that I need to worry about, so I don't care about this. That's definitely an issue. And it opens the door to lesser crimes. I mean, even still very serious crimes. Do you want Apple scanning everybody's phone to see if you have a picture of yourself on site at the January 6th insurrection on the Capitol here in the US? Serious crime. Be nice to find those people. But do I want Apple looking into my private files that I have not published anywhere online to find those? I mean, I wouldn't, but does the government want to do that? Yeah, absolutely they do.
There are zero instances where technology like this has not been abused for government or personal reasons.
Is that a reason not to do it? I don't think it is.
Well,
we know it's going to happen, so do it for something good. First of all, I guess, but it's just the inevitable march towards our dystopian future.
Yep. Happy.
I need it's hard to know even how to talk about this, but
yeah, it's tough.
You had one more article. Was there anything new to add from here?
That was yours, actually. That was just a few.
Okay. I think this was just supporting some of the stuff that we already talked about then.
Yeah, the other one that I had there was from a guy, the Renter Founder, I think .com, where he had a lot of experience with implementing perceptual hashes, and he gave examples of the different algorithms he'd used and implemented, and he was basically like, there's no way there's not going to be false positives. It was a really well written article. It was nice, very clear, but it really just kind of reiterated in nice terms what we've been saying, what everybody is aware of.
And also talked about just some of the legal issues that currently it's only legal to report it to the specific agency that deals with that. But in this case, they would be getting reported to Apple, who then looks into it on their own and passes it on. So there's questions there too about whether it's legal not legal for Apple to look at the images, but legal if the way they handle the images that they find is legal or not.
Yeah.
All right, perceptual hashes, we talked about that. All right, well, here's our favorite topic coming up once again. Cyber intrusion activity jumped 125% in the first half of 2021. We are winning. And I thought this was interesting because we just read an article. We're winning. I'm not on the hacking side. I'm not winning anything.
Well, it's keeping us in a job, man. I mean,
right.
we'd have to find something else to do.
Yeah, that was a sarcastic. We're winning. We are definitely not winning. We are losing. But I thought it was interesting. I think it was last week that we talked about how overall ransomware, the overall amount of ransomware payments is down, even though the number of ransomware payments maybe is up. They're smaller, but there's more of them in some cases. Some companies are not paying. But overall, activity is getting worse. There was another white paper from Sophos that talked about, on average, 37% of all countries in their research had reported an incident, and the U.S., because I'm from the U.S., so obviously that's all I can think about. Is there a rest of the world? Typical American. But 51% of U.S. companies reported a ransomware attack that affected multiple computers, and that blows. I read through their study. I couldn't find any obvious holes, but that just seems so high for that ransomware specifically.
My first question is, okay, who were they asking? Who actually submitted responses to this survey? Because I think there seems to be some bias there. Maybe that's real.
There was a disproportionately high number of IT companies. So
yeah,
20% of the total respondents were IT companies. There was no other category. It was twice any other category.
Right. I mean, how many plumbers did they ask? And baristas. Is it companies that they were specifically about? These companies that were affected by ransomware, right?
Yeah.
Not individuals. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, sole traders and small companies, I think, probably less likely. I might skew that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter. It's all about the trends. If you interview the same group of people 1 year and then the next year, it's how much has it gone up by? So it's increasing. Climate change of the security industry is it's not going down and it's not going away, and it is keeping us in a job. So
it feels a little I guess you'd say it's paradoxical, right? Both things can be true, even though the combination seems very unlikely. But 70% of the companies attacked by ransomware are bigger than $1 billion. So all a confluence of. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a product of the fact that bigger companies have a bigger attack surface. You know, if you're worth $1 billion, then you have 10,000 employees. So yeah, you're going to get attacked a lot more.
But they're also spending significantly more on cyber defense, which we talked about also last week.
Yeah.
They have the most resources to run it. Yes, they're the juiciest target. But I mean, I guess people are people, right? That's always where usually where you're going to have your weaknesses. So if somebody can slip a phishing email through or get somebody to plug in a USB drive or who knows what else.
Statistics, isn't it? The more attack vectors you have, the more likely you are for one of them to slip through. The economics of spam, isn't it? You send out 10 million emails, you only need 0.001% of them to actually fall for it, and you got yourself some money.
As ridiculous as it seems to click on some of those links to you or I, my grandmother wouldn't know the difference and could click happily. It's just it's not getting better. It's getting so much worse.
I think you've reached the stage I was at last week where I was just exhausted with everything.
I can't take the bad news.
Sometimes it just gets too much. So does feel a bit overwhelming, a bit exhausting.
Yeah, I felt a little optimistic about the ransomware payments being down article, but now we find out, oh no, it's just a mirage.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know I don't have an answer to burnout. Like it's just don't just turn it off for a while. You know, even doctors have to take a break. Life-saving surgeries to do, but you know they can't go forever.
And the worst part, I don't know the worst part, but in thinking about it, it it's terrible that it just starts to feel tedious.
Yeah,
We talk about
become numb to the.
so many breaches and so many malware attacks and so many like worsening statistics. It almost gets to the point where you just want to roll your eyes at it, like, another another incident. What shocking.
So we had a week and a half to look for positive privacy news. That was the
I
focus of
know I
our
just
last.
couldn't do it.
Yeah, and we struggled to come up with much. But I tell you what, the best thing that came out of that for me was that I I found the kind of search. It's brought it to the top of my mind of like, okay, keep an eye out for this stuff in the future. I'm going to look harder from now on. I'm going to make more of an effort to look for positive stuff. If you just sit back and let it all wash over you, then I think you will get overwhelmed. So we do have to make a conscious effort to look for positive aspects of this whole sorry mess. That would
And
be
part
better
of it's
with
just
it,
the
like a.
bias we'll see in like reporting on it and the articles.
Yeah,
Negative articles that get people angry are going to get more play.
yeah,
It's much
yeah,
easier to spread something if your motivation is, this is terrible, I have to tell everyone, than, oh,
yeah,
this is cute or this is funny, I'll share it. There's not as much energy behind that.
yeah. Just look at the top 10 headlines on any news site. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all disasters, basically.
Part of the problem with the fake news and social media is it's just so much more fun to spread the sensational than it is to spread the truth.
Yeah.
Did you ever check out The Social Dilemma? You didn't.
I have
It's still
downloaded.
written on your sticky note. I know.
No, but I've gone a step further. I downloaded it, and
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I bought a subscription to a movie service where I can watch it, and what the difference now is that I've started watching movies in the evening because I am single for a few weeks. So I have my evenings completely to myself, and I've almost watched it, but
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
give me till next week. Let's see what happens.
I found
The thing is,
myself.
if I finally watch it, you're not gonna have anything to bug me about. So I kind of feel like, even if I do watch it, I'm not gonna tell
Now
you.
you're
I
just trying to
just
drag it on.
yeah.
I don't. I
just
was
have
really
to.
impacted by that movie. I
Well, clearly,
suspect that once you watch it, you'll want to talk about it, but we'll see, I guess.
absolutely 100%. Oh, but I'm just gonna make subtle references to it, and you'll be like, "Oh, so did you watch it finally?" No,
No.
I don't, what do you mean? Like, no, I. What? Oh, is that in the social dilemma? Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Can you send me a link? I don't know
God,
if I saw that.
yeah, right, yeah. But they should make a movie about that. You know what?
I know.
They should
They
put that in
should.
a movie. Like this. This is a really fascinating. Yeah.
I know. I've been finding recently we were cable cutters years ago, and for a long time we just basically had Netflix and none of the other services. But now they're popping up, good programming, good shows. So we started Disney. Disney was bundled with Hulu, so we got that. We've got Amazon Prime, Amazon Prime Video because we have Amazon Prime membership, and then we got a free 1 year subscription to Apple TV. And now it just feels like cable television where I'm constantly scrolling through schedules looking for something and finding nothing to watch, even though I have 6 times as many streaming service options as I did before. But I don't know what that has to do with anything. It just
No, I know what you mean. It's yeah. I don't know. I don't use many streaming services. I pay for a service to watch UK TV in Malta, and that's it. Terrestrial rubbish. The thing is that I don't use TV for like mental sustenance. I use it to switch off. So whatever rubbish is on, I'm happy to kind of yeah.
whatever
That's
rubbish is on. Should be like the
yeah.
slogan for NBC, not to pick them out. Whatever rubbish is on. So we should plug the show, and then I do have one last article to share. If you made it this far, like and subscribe. I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Hey,
Anything
I
to add
get
to
to
that,
plug
Peter?
something this week. Well, yes, I do have that article that I mentioned coming up. It's going to be on io.com, which is the people who make AdBlock Plus. They have an upcoming conference called the AdBlocker Developer Summit, which is going to be in October. And I wrote an article about the future of content filtering with regards to privacy. So keep an eye out for that. I'm sorry. I'm glad we're ending right now because I couldn't have.
It was good. Well, we do
Okay,
have one
yeah.
more article. I think we've got a few minutes left.
Oh, yeah.
What's your list called? Is it called the PGL list? What's it called? Do you have a name for your list?
People,
or it's just...
No, I mean, I
Okay.
called it the Peter Lowe's ad and tracking server list, but it's a bit
Catchy.
few too many words. Some people call it the yo-yo list. Some people call it the I don't know.
Good branding. We'll have to work on that.
At
any
the whole
rate,
thing's an accident anyway. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
An accident that just happens to power phenomenal unofficial sponsor of the show. We mention them every single time. uBlock Origin. I bring that up just to promote your notoriety, Peter, as the curator of this list.
You're too kind.
I know you love when we focus on that. All right.
Well, I should mention I'm actually going to be talking at this AdBlocker Developer Conference. So I wrote the article, and my talk is going to be entirely self-indulgent. It's going to be called My Little Block List, and I'm just going to answer a lot of questions that I get quite regularly about the block list, how it started, and how it's going. Throw some stats up there, how I check it, all the kind of background, and some of the things that people seem curious about. And it's just going to be about myself, so I'm going to do a whole talk about it.
I am one of those people. We'll add it to our rundown once it's published. I will interview the author.
Yeah, okay. Well, I hope you join the conference, or at least for 20 minutes.
You mentioned that last week we tried to do an entire show of nothing but positive headlines. We did not succeed in that. It was a interesting exercise, though. So I do have one kind of fun article to talk about. Fun, I guess. I don't know. Depends on how you interpret it. But I saw this article about how they are using albatrosses to catch illegal fishing vessels. So they fit them with GPS trackers. The albatrosses are out flying around the ocean and can see these boats. They're attracted to the fishing boats because they can get, free food from there. So using the GPS trackers, they just look to see where the albatrosses are clumping up, and they can know from that they found illegal fishing boats. So my comment to you was invasions of privacy surveillance is only limited by your imagination, because you could put GPS trackers on albatrosses and scan the entire ocean.
Yeah. This is brilliant, and I love it so much because I just love the idea of this happy little albatrosses flying. Albatross, I totally, yeah. Albatross flying around and just flagging all these illegal fishes out there. It's great.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the story about. Sorry. It reminded me of the story about the SMS tracker that they put on an eagle. I think it was an eagle, and he flew across Africa and ran up an enormous phone bill because it was sending SMS pings
trying to track it.
Thousands of bucks.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
They found hundreds of boats using this technique, so it worked.
How are you going to hide?
Right. And there's no limit to the number of ways people are going to figure out how to surveil and track. And this will probably get rolled into the DoD's precog system that we talked about last week in our good news session.
they will figure out a way to make this work ads into this somehow. This data is going to be used for like, are you an illegal fisherman? Do you need to hide from the police? Facebook are going to put it on a bunch of drones or something and then market. Yeah.
We'll just add it to the albatrosses now are on the list of IoT devices that could potentially be hacked.
Oh yeah, I suppose that's true. The tracker, the GPS trackers are there's gonna be some like fundamental security flaw in them, and then we're gonna find out that there's a global network of. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, let's go back to the happy albatri, and think about that instead rather than the.
Yeah, it was a successful program, so that's the upside. The downside is you can't escape the eyes of the albatross.
Yeah.
The all-knowing albatross,
well,
scanning the ocean, keeping us safe.
It's been great as always, Mike. God, I got to wrap it up.
Yeah, it's just it's a fun story to end on. We had to make that decision because a couple times we painted ourselves into a corner, ending on a terrible topic. So this is a little bit more fun way to end. It was a good show today. We'll have this out at 10 a.m. on Friday morning. Release schedule we are committed to sticking to at this point. So like and subscribe to the show. Check us out next week. Anything? Let's sign off. We good, Peter?
So good. Yeah.
All right. See everyone next week. Bye.
Bye.